One of the things that really strikes me about your new book, Climax at Gallipoli, is how it puts a whole new, broader perspective on Australia's contribution, the significance of what happened, and the futility of the campaign.
It focuses on some heavy myths that have evolved over the past 100 years, and one of those is that Gallipoli was the main thing happening in 1915. Now that's not the case. It was really a small part of a much broader picture, and really it's just one of those other case studies of warfare in 1915 where the major effort was being made on the Western Front, the major casualties were being incurred on the Western Front, and it was really another one of those doomed offensives of 1915 where they were trying to bite off more than they could chew.
So there was that sense that maybe if we tried a bit harder, the August offensive, the climax you talk about at Gallipoli, maybe it could have punched through and got through to the Dardanelles and victory would have been ours.
Yeah, that's definitely been the narrative, and it started weeks after the offensive failed, and it largely started because there were generals and staff officers trying to save their own skin and take the focus away from their own failures. And it's really continued on throughout the literature. But really when we look back at the campaign, we can see that the commanders didn't have the experience, the tactics and technology had not developed to the state that was required yet. There wasn't the logistic backup to achieve these large-scale offensives, which were multi-phase, to push across the peninsula. And we never got beyond the first phase of an offensive that actually had 4 phases. And so success, which is portrayed as something that nearly occurred had we had some luck, was actually nowhere near.
But often we associate poor military decisions on British commanders, and we don't like to associate that as being something that Australians did, but it was imposed on us.
And partly that comes out of a result of the large casualties that are incurred at Gallipoli. But in 1915, Australia didn't have any commanders with experience that could command at that level that was required at Gallipoli, so that fell to British generals. And these were men who, with great experience, they were intelligent men, they had studied the profession of arms. And what they were doing at Gallipoli was trying to fight a type of war that they had been exposed to and that they had studied their entire careers, a type of war that had worked in the past, but which in 1915, where it was much easier to defend than attack, they hadn't quite figured out that their old style of war wasn't working yet, and that would not come for another couple of years.
It strikes me that Gallipoli has been clutched on as a symbolic event in Australian national history in the absence of any other major cataclysmic war or revolution in Australian society that we can look to as an example or something to symbolise the identity of Australia. My sense is that that's partly misplaced.
Gallipoli was the biggest event at that time in the young nation's history, and it flooded the newspapers. News of the landings in April appeared from May onwards, and the casualty lists appeared. But that was really much a one-sided story and focused particularly on the Australian aspects of that story. It's only been in recent years that we've managed to get the New Zealand back into Anzac. But Gallipoli was so much more than the Anzacs.
But isn't it fair to say, though, that proportionally Australia was really carrying its weight, putting in, punching above its weight, or doing something extra special?
Without doubt they were at Gallipoli, but we were only at Gallipoli. The difference there was that the British and French forces had huge numbers of troops, in the tens of thousands, in France and Belgium, fighting for the very survival of the French and Belgian nations. So when we look at it in proportion to the effort that was going into the campaign, we can look at Australia as really just providing troops to fight, the same with the New Zealanders, but the direction, the cost, the largest casualties, all fell to the British. It's something that the nation looks to as a defining moment in its history and can really hold up there as something uniquely Australian, and that's one of the problems. It's not uniquely Australian. The efforts of the soldiers there were amazing, and we don't take anything away from those efforts and the sacrifices made, but they were part of a coalition, and a coalition that suffered at the hands of a very good and capable and competent enemy in the Ottoman Empire.